Welcome to another episode of the Men's Sexual Mastery Podcast. This is your host, Ian Hawks, joined by our co-host, co-founder, Ben Timby. Welcome, Ben.
Hey, what's up, everybody?
Yeah, good to be here with you all. Today, Ben and I wanted to come on here and talk a little bit about the topic of desire. Many men, in my observation, are either struggling with the burying of their desire, a difficulty or inability to fully express and own and claim their desire, or being on the other side of the spectrum, being really pulled by an immense amount of desire that doesn't have a level of containment and equanimity around it that can actually repel and repulse that which you are seeking. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about the middle path here, our ability as men to claim our desires, to own that, while at the same time fully letting go of the need for those desires to be fulfilled. And so with that, Ben, I'd love to turn it over to you to hear a little bit about your story, your path and experience with desire.
Yeah, thanks, Hawks. I just want to start by saying this is a pretty edgy topic for me to even speak about publicly because of how far on the suppression end of the spectrum I have been my whole life, and how much this has been one of my core pain points, along with porn addiction. When I was at a young age. So I want to just say, coming out the gate, that we say all the time at Men's Sexual Mastery, mastery is a path. It's an ongoing path. And I'm just speaking as a brother who's been on this path for a number of years. And, you and I both, we've supported hundreds of guys through this process, but I don't want to speak from some pedestal as someone who necessarily has all this figured out, because there's, as we know, as we're going to get into, there's so much nuance. And there's a part of me that's almost slightly resistant sometimes to speaking too much about this, because I'm in my own integration of this, and it is so edgy. This is like the crux of so much of this work, and the feminine is so mysterious, and this work is so variable depending on where guys are coming from, that what we're going to cover today is hopefully just some tools and frameworks, just as men who've been on this journey, to support other men out there. But by no means is anything I'm saying like black and white, or like I'm trying to say that this is across the board true for everybody. So yeah, happy to share a little bit about my story. As many of you guys know who've tuned in, like, I was raised in a really conservative religious home, and sex was something we didn't talk about. There's a lot of shame around it. It was suppressed. I got addicted to pornography at 10. I was also homeschooled at a young age, so a lot of social anxiety already. And, that combined with my porn addiction when I started going into public schools led me to have like panic attacks talking to women, just like so much pain around claiming my desires and this whole topic. And it really haunted me, through my teens into my 20s, and I was still addicted to porn. I was married once before, and it wasn't really till I got into this work, around 5-6 years ago, really went all into it as soon as I found it, that this really started to shift things for me. And so, yeah, I'd say for me specifically, one of the ways I coped with this pattern early on of not claiming my desires was kind of this unconscious, sneaky ways of like trying to get sex, like friend zoning a lot of women, and kind of this like reach around energy, or this manipulative, indirect way of trying to get my needs or my desires met. And there's a lot of performance in it, and even getting into a little bit of pickup artistry and just like ways that I could basically try to manipulate. But at my core, the truth was that, I wasn't actually in self-love. I didn't value myself. I didn't think I was worthy of love. So I thought I had to sneak around to get it. I didn't think I could just name it outright, because I didn't actually believe that I was worthy of a woman's love. And so we're going to get into it a little bit today, but I mean, this is, again, really deep work. The core reframe that I found in my journey, and that many men find in this work, is learning how to come from an overflowing cup where we're filling ourselves with our own worthiness, our own love, our own pleasure, even sexually. And this is a lot of what we get into the training. And when we come from overflow, it's a different energy when we're approaching a woman desiring something versus when we're coming from this unconscious, extractive, manipulative way, which is what I came from a lot in the past. And again, there's still moments where like I unconsciously will fall back into those old patterns in my relationship. But yeah, I think a lot of this is what we come to the core to, especially as we go deeper into this work. Especially, it's one thing to be a pickup artist and like know how to sleep with women, but if you're actually in a long-term relationship, she's going to get to know all of you, and you cannot hide anything from your woman. She's an oracle, and you even suppressing your desires or shoving it down and not speaking them is gonna she's gonna feel that. It's like a numbing that's happening. Or as you said, like if we have too much desire and we're coming onto her too strong, like she's going to feel our lack of containment and like dependency on her to get our needs met. So how do we actually come from this overflowing cup? And like what's a way that we can move into claiming our desires with detachment from outcome without being attached to it? I think that's a lot of what is at the core of all of this, and what we're going to be getting to today. So yeah, Hawks, is there anything that comes up for you around this and your personal journey? Any reflections you have before we get into it?
Hmm. Yeah. So the distinction that you are making there around desire, our desire as a man, either being a gift, an offering, we could call it medicine, or it being a burden. If it's coming from neediness, it can have the effect that's actually closer to a poison. And so, yeah, I wanted to just reiterate that distinction, and a framework for us to feel into as men is noticing what is the impact of my desire in this situation. Is it having a medicinal effect where it's creating more connection, more love, more vitality in the relationship and in my own life or my partner's life? Or is it actually dissolving trust? Is it creating disconnection and um, you know hurt or harm in some way? And that same desire, depending on the energy that we're bringing it with, can have a medicinal or a poison effect. And so that is one of the important things to understand and to start to reflect on when we step into a more intentional or conscious practice of noticing our desires and then taking some action to claim them, to own them, to express them. And of course, the primary distinction that I heard you make there is: are we coming with the neediness, where we're coming from an emptier place and looking for that desire to help fill us up, or are we coming from a place of fullness, completeness, not the extraction energy, but actually giving that, offering that desire as an offer, as a gift? It's something that, here, this is where I'm at. This is what I would love to experience or give or receive, and I don't need it. It's not an extraction energy. It's just naming, this is what's real for me, and then having the inner peace and stability to either smile into the no if we receive a no, and to actually have gratitude for that, to be able to let the person know that, yeah, thank you
Mm-hmm.
for sharing your no, because that is an incredibly important ability for a relationship and for a partner to have, to be able to name whether it is a yes or a no for them. But without getting too much into like a protocol just yet, the other piece that was coming up for me as you were sharing a little bit about your personal story, Ben, is the element of shame. And in my own journey, when I reflect back on my earlier years, I was carrying a lot of shame around some of the desires that I had, and what I wouldn't have used that language at the time. I don't know that how aware of it I was, but when I reflect back on my old patterns, I can see now that actually there were so many times that I didn't name or claim a desire that I had that actually I think would have been absolutely met by my partner. And it actually would have added a lot of richness to our connection and to our intimacy. But there was a belief within me that some of those desires that I had weren't worthy, or they weren't acceptable, or they were going to reveal something about me that I didn't feel comfortable owning at that point. And now I can see how much of a gift it can be to name my desire in my partnership and to let her know, hey, this is what would really turn me on. This is what I would love to experience and explore. And it has opened up so many doors for us to go deeper and to honor my authentic expression. And then that also invites her into exploring and honoring her authentic expression. And there's just so much that we can explore and play with there. But for so much of my life, I was actually diminishing a lot of my own desire. And then that led to a less vibrant,
Mm.
intimate connection in my partnerships. And they eventually, that flame dwindled out. And so understanding the way that shame, whether it's cultural, religious programming, our own family systems and beliefs, whatever it is, there's oftentimes some element of shame at play for us as men that is inhibiting our ability to really claim our desires. So I think that that's an important one to speak about. And then after, yeah, well, I'll leave it at that. I'm curious to hear what comes up for you
Mhm.
around that shame piece. It feels important
Yeah.
to name.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really great little disclaimer to give to guys. I mean, that's a whole other topic that would be far beyond this podcast, and even just something you could receive in information. That's actually like getting support in coaching or in therapy, and
Mhm.
different spaces, men's groups to alchemize that shame. But it's really important to name that. Yeah, if you're noticing that's coming up, there could be a lot of work you do outside of claiming your desires. The things we're going to get into today that are specifically targeting that shame. So, if you're noticing constriction in your body as we're even going through this conversation, or when you claim your desires, that form of constriction, it can, like you said, you may not be aware that it's coming from shame, but oftentimes that can be stored in the body, and that's something you want to get extra support with. So, yeah, that being named, I would love to get into creating the actual structure and protocol, what we recommend for guys, what's worked for us and for lots of other men around how to claim your desires without attachment. And one of the first things I want to start by saying is, having a line of communication and creating a container, as we call it, with your partner, where you express to them outside of any sexual interaction that you're interested in exploring what it's like to claim more of your desires, be more authentic while releasing attachment, and communicating to your partner that your intention is not to create pressure on them, it's not to guilt trip them, it's not to resent them or anything else. There may be things that come up. This is kind of like playing with fire. So communicating ahead of time that you're creating a safe space for just processes to emerge as you are working the atrophied muscle of claiming your desires, and noticing what triggers and stories and implosion or explosion, shutdown comes up. It's edgy, but it's good to just let your partner know that, hey, this my intention is to create more intimacy between us, and to explore what it feels like for me to step into this, and also do it without pressuring you at all. So I really welcome your no, and I want you to trust that it may be hard for me to receive at first, but in time, this is like rejection therapy, or kind of like ice baths. Like the rejection piece takes some time to like learn how to not make that mean something about us, or not activate our shame or our unworthiness or our abandonment wounds, or like whatever's coming up. But communicating this to your partner so that she's welcome to speak her no's, as we say, roll out the red carpet for her no's, as Misha, one of our previous guests, said, to make room for her full fuck yes. And trust us that this is going to unlock her ability to, like, her being able to be safe to say no and safe to say yes is going to actually help unlock her sexuality as well. This is an investment. This is like going to the gym. This is going to be triggering. It's going to be hard. It's going to be bringing up all the unconscious patterns. So having a clear, safe space for communication and letting your partner know what's going on, the game you're playing, if you will, is important. And one thing, there's a lot of this we go into in the deeper training, but just for guys who are new to this, having like a clean emotional connection between your partner, no resentments, nothing unspoken. We have a practice we call clearing the glass that we recommend guys do. It's just sitting down every week for a few minutes or however long it takes in front of your partner and just asking the question, is there anything standing in the way of deeper intimacy and trust between us? And giving her a safe space to like reflect, just like our oracle back. Like when you said you were going to take out the trash or do this or that, or you didn't, it made me feel like a loss of trust in you, or when you like you just having a safe space to process, and having therapy and or counseling and support if you need it. Like going into intimacy, you have to have a clean connection emotionally to really go deep in this work. And so, yeah, that's a little bit about just setting the container. And Hawks, do you have anything else you'd add to that?
No, that feels complete for now for setting the container. And then could you walk us through the actual practice of, okay,
Mm-hmm.
one thing that I would add here is for for me, there was an important stage along the journey for me of actually really contemplating what are my desires.
Mm-hmm.
There was a shame element that inhibited the expression of desires that I may have been aware of. But then there was also this people pleasing, nice guy part that was so oriented towards just like, how can I make this the best experience for her? And actually foregoing some of my own deeper core of desire, not
Mm-hmm.
realizing that foregoing my deeper desires was actually doing a disservice to my partner
Yeah.
because it's not giving my full self. And
Mm-hmm.
when both partners can show up giving their full self, that's what creates the most robust and vibrant whole. But if one
Mm-hmm.
partner is really holding back, then it's actually doing a disservice to the relationship itself. Even though for me at that point in my journey, I thought I was doing the honorable thing by just being like, it's not as important what I want. How can I just
Mm-hmm.
focus on what she wants? So yeah, I would put something in here, a potential important step,
Little
maybe
homework. Yeah.
actually really sitting with yourself and feeling into like the fantasies that come up. What would really turn me on? What is something that I could explore that maybe I haven't yet with my partner? And then having something real that we can actually bring that's
Mm-hmm.
authentic and alive, and it might be a little edgy, but providing that we're aware of what we're desiring, then could you walk us through, Ben, how do we bring that to our partner in a clean, clear way?
Yeah. Yeah, those are great points. I love all that. And having that clarity in what we want is essential. Like if we're not clear, then it's going to be muddled, and like that doesn't provide leadership to the space. So yeah, that's a really great additional point. So yeah, the steps that we found to be most effective when you're stepping into claiming your desire without attachment begin with nervous system regulation. As we say all the time, sexual mastery is nervous system mastery. So if you have any shame, or if you have any, if you think you're too much, or it's you're not enough, or like any of these patterns that are coming up, you may notice as soon as you go to speak your desire, your body is going into this clenching. Your nervous system is starting to go into a sympathetic state. So regardless of where you're at, we recommend, if you feel the desire coming up, to pause, take a big breath, just take a moment to regulate yourself and feel your desire coming up, identify it, gain clarity in what it is. And then just take a quick pause to ask yourself this question. We like to say the filter question: is this desire aligned with the man I am becoming and the man I want to be? And that's a that can vary depending on who you are, what your values are, everything else. But yeah, really making peace with like, this is actually aligned with my heart, my cock, my mind, like in all parts of me, this feels aligned, and am I coming from an extractive place, or am I coming from a pure place of just, this is something moving through me, this is something I want to express, this isn't some way I want to manipulate my partner into me feeling better about myself, or me trying to escape life through sexual intercourse. So yeah, really getting clear in ourselves with that filtering question, and then assuming that it's aligned with every part of ourselves, we move into speaking it again, staying in the breath, and we speak out loud with a downward inflection what our desire is. You speak that out loud to your partner. The downward inflection really helps bring that masculine, groundedness to it, certainty to like, this is clear, this is what I want. And as soon as you speak the desire, again, staying in the breath, this is crucial. If you lose your breath, you get tight, you get rigid, it feels forced, and your partner's not going to enjoy it. So lean back. As soon as you speak it, you lean in, speak your desire, maybe with a little smile, you whisper it into her ear, you deliver it, and then you lean back. And leaning back is like a physical, and staying in your breath and keeping your body relaxed is a physical way you can communicate to her. Women are very nonverbal. Women are very like emotional and tapped into your energy. By leaning back and staying in your breath, you're demonstrating to her your detachment from the outcome, and that you're complete and whole to the best of your ability within yourself, and you're just offering something. And from here, the next step would be just gauge her response. We did a whole podcast just a few episodes ago on this, and like the art of reading sexual cues. Notice, does she seem to open? Does her breath open, her body open? Does she soften and lean in? Or does she close? Does her breath get shallow? Does she contract? Like, it's subtle at first, but you can usually pick up on it pretty quick. And, from this point, of course, if she's open, then you proceed into the desire. Again, the recommendation in all of this is continuing to lean back, continuing to stay in the breath, and continuing to stay detached and let it go where it goes. Releasing attachment to actually even getting anywhere. Let it take a bunch of left turns and actually tune into her body. And like, this is back to the art of sexual cues. So if you're interested in learning more about those next steps, you can check out that podcast episode. The other alternate, possibility is rejection. Is your partner closing? And this is the one we really need to speak to, because for a lot of guys, this can bring up all sorts of triggers, all sorts of shutdown within us. We can get reactive, or we can implode. And the work here, when our partner goes into a shutdown, is first of all to just breathe, lean back, let yourself feel whatever, unworthiness or stories you're associating with her saying no. Let yourself fully feel that. See if you can stay in your breath, stay leaning back, receive the no, and say thank you. Say thank you. Even if it's so fucking hard, like, tell her thank you. Thank you for taking care of yourself. Thank you for letting me know. And if you need to take some time apart from her, again, we don't want to guilt trip her. We don't want to abandon her. We're not trying to pressure her. But, really just focus on taking care of yourself and trusting that her no, continuing to create a safe space for her no's, is going to open up the full fuck yes when the time comes. And if you've been in relationship for a long time where you've pushed and pressured her or guilt tripped her into sex, which, like, for most of us, myself included, even in my current relationship, like, this work is deep. Like, it's almost inevitable that, like, at some point in your relationship, that's happened. Your woman, oftentimes, this can be a test of your unconditional love for her. And it can take time to rebuild trust if there's been a pattern of pressure, and guilt tripping or shame, or her. A lot of women just go along with what the guy wants because she doesn't want to disappoint him. She doesn't want you to start getting reactive or shutting down. So, like, there can be this sort of massaging out process, or reprogramming that can feel really painful at first, but you can trust, if you keep speaking your desire and giving her a safe space to say no, and don't collapse in that or don't guilt trip her in that, it's only a matter of time before her trust will be rekindled in you and she'll open again. But this can be like a shit test, in the beginning of where are you really coming from, and continuing to demonstrate that like you can, even if you do implode, that like you can pick yourself back up again and love her again and tell her thank you. We've seen this time and time again. I've seen it in my own relationship. We've seen this in guys who've been married for years or decades, who like the intimacy is totally gone out and they're afraid to speak their desire, and she says no because of these old patterns, this calcification of intimacy. But just trust that like you continuing to show up for her and unconditional love always wins, in my experience and what I've witnessed. Like she'll eventually, when you've proven you're that you're really there for her, and you're really claiming your desire without attachment, uh, that's oftentimes when she'll open. So yeah, that's the process step by step that we recommend. If you're curious of learning more about the rejection piece and like how to actually navigate that split second moment when she says no and you feel the pain of rejection, check out episode 45, navigating sexual triggers, rejection, and shutdown. We go a lot deeper into that in that episode. So that's the
Mhm.
process.
Mm. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. The process of of receiving a no, particularly in the bedroom in a sexual context for men, and I know for myself on my journey, that was such a difficult, edgy place to actually be in equanimity with, to actually not take personally. And it can be one of the most potent personal development or even spiritual development practices to, as you were saying, Ben, get the reps in of claiming our desires and being rejected and actually receiving that no, and then noticing what comes up in me. Am I actually solid and good and okay with that?
Mm-hmm.
Or is there a little shink in my arm, or is this triggering an old wound or a pattern in me? And probably for most men, the answer is going to be like, yeah, that's going to be a little triggering. And
Mm-hmm.
then that shows us where there's still an opportunity for us to become more whole, more good in ourselves. And so I would invite this as much a practice of nourishing the relationship as a practice of personal growth and evolution for yourself. And the more that we can see where those chinks in our armor are, the more that we can then start to have the awareness of, oh yeah, this is actually triggering this old thing in me. It's not about this current situation that I'm in right now. I don't need to take this personally. This doesn't mean what my nervous system is trying to make it mean to me. And
Mm-hmm.
then that's like such a valuable practice of to be able to feel that old wound and very quickly smile into it, breathe into it, and remind myself that, oh yeah, this isn't actually about that. This is
Mm-hmm.
uh, this is just an opportunity for me to stay open, to stay in connection, as you were saying, to stay in the connection of love with our partner. And
Yeah.
that same no, whether it's met with contraction and like a collapsing inwards in the man, or an explosion, like an outward defensiveness or manipulation or finger pointing,
Mm-hmm.
both of those responses are going to dissolve trust and connection in that
Mm-hmm.
moment and over prolonged periods of time in the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And the more that we can notice those patterns and smile into them and just let ourselves play that out, play the wound or the implosion or the explosion and defensiveness or finger pointing, we just allow ourselves a minute to play that out in our head without actually expressing it outwards.
Mm-hmm.
And then just get back to that place where we remember, like, oh yeah, I can actually just say thank you to my partner right now for revealing to me all these things that I still get to
Mm-hmm.
work on in myself, and for honoring what's real in her and maintaining the authenticity of our connection and relationship, because
Mhm.
if she isn't honoring her no, then that is going to lead in the short term. It might seem
Mhm.
like we get what we want, but in the long term, I promise you that is going to completely dissolve and erode the deeper levels and longer lasting levels of connection
Mhm.
and intimacy
Yeah.
that are available and possible for us. So yeah,
Can
it's
I
a
hop
helpful framework. And yeah, go ahead.
can I hop in? I just wanted to add that what you're speaking to, or what we're speaking to here, is way, way easier said than done. And like
Yep.
it would feel like an injustice to not mention that this is exactly why we have the men's sexual mastery training. And this isn't meant to be like an ad for it or something. I mean, this is like our life's work. And what this podcast is all about is creating those support systems for men to be in that experience and not be in isolation. In my experience firsthand, and every other man that I know and the guys we've helped and guys along this path, it is extremely difficult and almost unlikely to actually break these patterns in isolation. And so whether that's like within a community like ours, and we do these different cohorts and small group coaching, or in therapy and other men's groups, 10 out of 10 like recommend having support, having brotherhood, having mentors or coaches or therapists with you, where you can be breaking this down play by play when things can get really squirrely. Again, this is playing with fire, and we can go into shutdown, and we can be in all sorts of unconscious patterns that our partner may be picking up on, but we're in denial of, or we're not even able to receive. And oftentimes having other men, especially around us, who are walking this path, who can reflect back to us like the breakdown and the play by play of like what happened, and fully feeling whatever it is that's there, the shame or the shutdown or unworthiness or whatever's going on, and having a space outside of your relationship to be processing that is essential to working through it. Otherwise, it's like our partner's becoming our therapist, and good luck having any sort of sexual attraction when someone's our therapist. So wherever you get it from, we highly recommend, if you're trying this out and you're noticing it's just like really bumpy and really rocky, to seek support. And of course, we're always here for you, but wherever it is, like highly recommend that. So yeah, just want to add that part in.
Hmm. Yeah. So coming right up on our time for this episode, I'd like to bring it back to these different ways that we may be either suppressing our desire or over expressing from a needy place our desire, and inviting the listeners again to just feel into: am I holding back some of my authentic desire from my partner or from the world,
Mhm.
or am I over exuberant and actually creating a level of repulsion by having such strong desires that aren't rooted, or being led by my desires in a way that isn't actually rooted in solidness and fullness in the self. And just looking at where we might land on that spectrum, and where there's an opportunity for us to either lean a little further in to claiming our desires, or lean a little further back when we do express our desires. And a
Mhm.
little distinction I want to make around that second part of, if we're really pushing our desires out there on the world, to check in: am I expressing these cleanly and clearly, as you were saying, Ben, using language and communication, rather than what I have observed is there can often be a pattern of not really taking responsibility and owning the desire by speaking it, but actually just expressing it through our body language
Mhm.
and movements. And this is where the manipulation can kind of come in. And like you were saying, like our female partners, like the feminine is going to feel that, whether we explicitly name and communicate our desire, or that desire is moving through us in our
Mhm.
actions, in our body language, she's feeling it either way, and it's going to probably come off much more clean and clear if we can just name that and then actually physically with our body lean back, like you were saying, rather than the opposite of not naming it and leaning in and like
Mm-hmm.
grabbing. And that creates the repulsion where we're actually like a magnet with the same pole and it's pushing her away, or we name the desire and then lean back and we flip that magnet. So now it's pulling her
Mm-hmm.
in. And yeah, we'll leave it at that for now. There's obviously a lot more depth we could go into with this, but I hope that is helpful in some way and that this can support the vibrancy in relationships and also our own personal development and spiritual development as men and as humans walking this world, checking in with what do I really want, and am I comfortable enough in myself to name that and claim that without actually needing it to be fulfilled,
Mm-hmm.
without creating suffering, but actually creating a charge and an energy in the world, so that we can open ourselves to receive what we truly desire, and
Mm-hmm.
that we can also have the serenity to let go of the
Mm-hmm.
need for that to be fulfilled, trusting in the process.
Mm. Amen. That's what it's all about. All right, guys. Well, thank you all for tuning in. As always, huge shout out to all the guys in our community. Thank you, thank you, thank you for making this show possible, this mission possible. We're just here to spread this stuff through the airwaves, the sex ed we never received, so that men can have deeper, lasting, more fulfilling relationships. So thank you guys always for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode.
Yeah, we'll see you there.